You know why we're here. MSG Saturday, UFC 322. It did feel like a big one, a major pay-per-view for the UFC as the ESPN deal continues to come to a close. A bit of that old MSG magic was there, especially during that stretch with 4 straight viral knockouts and a crazy brawl in the crowd right in the middle of it. But in the end, we did see some historical developments in the co- and main events, largely fueled by grappling, which has started a certain kind of argument. So Islam Makhachev becoming the 11th two-division champion in history with his unanimous decision, 50-45 across the board over Jack Della Maddalena, tying Anderson Silva's record streak of 16 consecutive wins. In that process, though, it was 5 rounds of when the opening was there, Islam took advantage of it. He took Jack down. Systematically would look to set things up, wasn't looking to be reckless, wasn't looking to do anything but schmesh, and he did that in the end. You are getting comparisons, though, to this fight, to the way Khamzat Chimaev took the middleweight title from DDP. Do we have an issue here? Is this cyclical? Let's get right into it, Luke. Is the criticism fair, or is the bigger takeaway here that a legendary fighter in Makhachev, the same one who Dana White conceded at the post-fight press conference, probably entering into GOAT talk, 1 or 2 fights away here, is it more about that, moving up a weight class, or are we going in the wrong direction entertainment-wise because here's back-to-back huge fights that they built up, and there was control that led to the victory?
Yeah, I mean, this is this is an interesting one to me because you kind of have to put your personal biases aside as much as you can and just kind of read the room and see where we are on this. I don't think anybody would deny that Islam just performed extraordinarily ably, perhaps to the point you raised, too ably.
I mean, I was in the second row. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I didn't hate it either. I do recognize that there were parts of the bout that were not particularly fun.
Yes.
I do recognize that some of the comparisons to DDP Khamzat are fair, but I also think that those are mostly exaggerated. But I would say this. We're kind of at this moment in time where defense at the highest level is typically getting much better. You know,
as it should.
People like, why did Poatan fight a guy, for example, in Khalil Roundtree, who was outside the top 5? Well, I mean, the level of defense drops off precipitously the further, even within the top 10 or top 15. Yeah, the fact that you got a wide open fight in that regard, to me, is not a coincidence. But you get guys at the very top, their defense is very, very good. It is hard to do things to them. And I think you got something like this. You see this in elite wrestling. You see this in elite jiu-jitsu. It can be you don't see a lot of, you'll see tech falls in high school. So you'll see tech falls at the highest level, but it's pretty rare at the truly highest level. So there's
like a 5-round tech fall is what you're saying.
No, a tech fall would be quick.
Right, but this is like that over 5 rounds.
Well, yeah, just sort of slowly simmering.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So by the time you get there, it's just one giant tech fall without that immediate, mercy rule. We got to call it off. So I think that's a big part of it. I think the other part, too, though, is that, dude, Islam is
fucking great.
Golly, bro. He is so fucking good. I mean, we knew this already. People were, it was kind of funny, right? People were saying, wow, look at how good Volk did. Really gives you a new appreciation, which it absolutely does. But it also reminds me the fact that Volk tried to fight that fucking guy on less than 2 weeks' notice. That was never going to go any other way other than the way it did. Yes. Islam is not a guy you can fight on any amount of short notice. What a disastrous idea that ended up being for any number of reasons, and the obvious ones I don't need to spell out. BC, I thought this performance was certainly a little on the safe side. I think there's something to be said for that. But I think the bigger issue was JDM didn't have the ability to get any offense going, but had a lot of survivability and some defense. And that made the friction a little bit hard to parse for some, a little harder to understand. But I just want to make this point before I pitch it back to you, which is, it's not just that Islam is so goddamn well-rounded, which, of course, wow, he really is. Taking the back and then trapping the arm, beating up JDM's leg on the feet.
How about just the fact that he neutralizes offense on the feet? For as long as they were there, completely. JDM got nothing done on the feet.
He looked like the training camp was much tougher than the fight itself. But the point I want to make was this guy makes just almost no mistakes. It is so hard to catch him in error. And I want you to think about what that means. People make mistakes when they don't understand something with the full depth and complexity that's required. look at the way in which he can dominate a bout, and there's really almost no interval where he's making serious or even otherwise perceptible mistakes.
Yeah.
It's unlike a championship reign, not going to say in MMA history, but he is absolutely among the half dozen kinds of guys and ladies that deserve to be remembered for being the very best that the sport has to offer.
Because when we hit these, I don't want to say lulls because it's not, but like, look, is it great for the sport if we go from the way Chimaev won to the way Islam won? Let's say in December, Merab does the same thing, right? Let's say he just controls for 5 rounds and lays on top. And that starts to happen for a year in a row. Is that bad for ratings? Is that bad for entertainment growth? Like, sure. I just don't think that's going to happen because these pockets of when one style just takes over the way it does, and we've been through wrestling cycles before in this sport, you know what I mean? American fueled or what have you. It just happens to largely be Dagestan or that whole area, extended area fueled. But it forces the rest of the game to elevate their game to deal with it. Like, that's it. Calf kicks had a moment where they completely could control a fight until you raised your game to learn how to deal with it. This is going to force that next level of not just the how often do we cry on the elite level when we don't see head movement, we don't see any dedication to defense. Well, even though I don't expect the rest of the sport to catch up to their wrestling dominance, the rest of the sport is going to have to catch up to find a way to hold it off. And that is an evolution of the sport built in that. It's cyclical. But it's hard to look at what this guy's doing historically and try to lead with the idea that, oh, yeah, but it's bad for the... No. This guy's awesome. This is incredible what he's able to pull off right here. We are watching a guy who came in with the Khabib rub and is actually taking it to another level, to the point of I led my post-fight takeaways column for CBS Sports with this topic, and I'm sure you've got something to say about it. They don't care about it. I asked Islam this week at Media Day, said the idea of him and Khabib or him and Umar and Usman ever having a conversation of who's better would never, ever happen because it's about building up their brother and being there for them in the same way they were for them. But I think it's fair to say that Islam has eclipsed from an accumulation, from an accomplishment standpoint, eclipsed Khabib's legacy.
Yeah. I mean, I have enormous respect for the career of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Undefeated, as everyone well knows.
Tired at 32, 29-0.
Set a standard of excellence that will has stood the test of time, and I think will continue to do that. But it's not a legacy that is unbeatable. And despite the fact that Islam was finished early in his career, I want to be very clear about something. People are looking at the way in which Islam made this look easy, and I think that they're downgrading the win as a consequence, which I think is a huge mistake. Recall, 34 years of age, bumps up 15 pounds against a JDM who looked like $1 million against a very good Bilal Muhammad, what appeared to me to be in phenomenal.
He looks scary, jacked in the cage,
my God.
Dude.
He had striations in his shoulder.
JDM was caught. I mean, the pecs, everything was rocking.
He looked to be in tremendous physical condition. And not only did Islam quite literally beat him everywhere, I want to make a note of this, and I'm sure everyone saw it. There was some chatter about it after the fact. He demoralized him.
Yeah.
He took his spirit from him in this fight. When the odds were the toughest, up a weight class, to do that against a guy at 29 who was the deserving reigning champion, and to take away his fighting spirit, he looked like at the end. Now, to his credit, he fought off everything, including submissions, late into the 5th. I'm not saying that he quit. That's not what I'm saying.
No, he used all of that energy to fight it off.
But his body wanted him to.
Yes.
And he had to rally and steel his mind because Islam was taking everything from him. Dude, motherfucking Islam is so special. And I do believe that this kind of win is something that Khabib simply does not have.
Yeah, and I think he's got, and we've already said it for years, but Islam's got a more well-rounded game than Khabib. He's 20, what is it? He's moved to 28-1 with his victory. Now a 2-division champion, 16 consecutive wins since that one fight 10 years ago against Adriano Martins that he walked into a hook, and now he calls it the big mistake that I made, and boy, has he made up for that. It did take him a while to get elite foes, but then once he did, the run that he's currently on right now, the opponents available to him moving forward in the sport's deepest division, he really does have a chance. Dana's not, talking out of his ass post-fight. He really does have a chance to approach here. Usman was in the same spot when he won 15 in a row and was number 1 pound for pound. He does have it. Look, we both say he's number 1 pound for pound now. You eclipse Merab and Ilya with that. Now they could flip-flop fight to fight until they fight each other, but this is the best in the show.
I think what Islam did to JDM and what it meant to beat him this way means more to me than Ilya and the way he beat Charles at this particular stage.
I agree with you.
Also, one more point getting back to Volk. Just think about that. Volk, when he bumped up to get a second belt, had to fight fucking Islam.
And now he wants to fight him at 170.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Ilya had to bump up and fight Charles. Charles is very good, but that's not that is in no way the same kind of task. Islam is your
well,
top
to
round
further
number one.
illustrate Islam's greatness, here are the streaks that he snapped to get to where he is right now. The win streak snapture, 11-fight win streak for Charles Oliveira at the very peak of his game. A Hall of Fame turn for Oliveira, a 22-fight run for the great Volkanovski. 18, people forget, Jack Della lost his first 2 pro fights, had been on an 18-fight win streak. Yes, didn't get to the title through the traditional path of beating killer contender after killer contender, but what he did against Bilal showed who he really was, what he tried to do in defense here. I mean, let's talk about the Jack side of it. How much are you disappointed in Jack? Dana sounded a bit afterwards like he thought he would do more. We're saying that about Whaley. We're saying that about the JDM, right?
I do have a question. There was so much grimacing on the floor. Did he, I'm not talking about the leg. Did he have some other kind of injury, or did he sustain any other kind of injury during the course of that bout? Didn't you see him like wincing in pain?
Yeah.
And again, part of that was probably frustration. I don't know. So I want to say we have to wait and hear, could there have been some kind of mitigating circumstance perhaps? I mean, on the one hand, like what worked? The submission defense certainly saved him. Remember the levels to fighting. There's survive, defend, attack. He never really got out of defend. He certainly was never, I mean, I guess the first opening seconds of the first round, he kind of came after him, but otherwise that was it. I would say I am a little disappointed in him. I thought he'd have a little bit more readiness for some of the things that Islam would be able to do. But I also feel like
it feels like DDP Chimaev. It really does. It really feels like the same feeling.
We should. Do you want to talk about the comparisons to that fight?
I mean, I know DDP was way more accomplished coming in than JDM was, but they both succumbed to the same thing. The one hole in their game, which in the past they've been able to not make it a hole. When you find that key that can slice through anything and turn it, you're fucked. And he used every ounce of his recuperative and toughness to be able to hold off being finished.
I have a video coming out about this. I was trying to do it at 4 a.m. this morning and I couldn't finish it. Yeah. But the reality is, again, if people didn't like it, I disagree, but I understand. People have different priorities.
Some people like Kiss. I mean, it's just
exactly.
ridiculous.
I mean, some people like bullshit, and that's life. But the reality is, this is the difference. The key thing you have to understand is underneath Islam. First of all, Islam never really hit the kinds of positions and could camp out in the way that Khamzat did. Khamzat was able to immediately go to side control and just simply hold it for long stretches of the fight, not just rounds. You didn't get that with Jack. Jack was fighting Islam for every single inch of space.
Yes.
Which is why Islam was, for the most part, only ever in half guard, because he couldn't really fully ever pass. JDM wouldn't let him. The point I'm trying to make is the positions were not neutral, BC, but they were closer to neutral than what you got with DDP, in part because Jack made it that way. And Jack was much, much squirmier underneath. He was trying buggy chokes. He was trying Granby reversals. He was trying, you name it. He was constantly fighting for frames. He was constantly trying to get to his side. The problem is, BC, he would get to his side. Islam would pin his own arm to him with his body weight or begin to separate it and look for a Kimura or some other thing where now he has to go back down. So he was making him pick between a set of offensive dilemmas. However, to the extent that that fight stalled out, which is debatable, but to the extent that it did, it's because if you've never rolled before, if you allow someone to do the beginning stage of, let's say, going bottom to top and you don't address it, the bottom falls out very quickly. So you have to stay on top of it, break a grip, place your weight somewhere, whatever it ends up being. Otherwise, it just goes completely haywire very quickly.
And the bottom drops out.
So the point I'm trying to make is Islam having to cover in that way, it might feel a little DDP Khamzat-ish, but I think there's a much better, that to me, if a guy underneath is very squirmy and hard to hold, I can appreciate what it means for a fight to not necessarily be exciting to order to maintain top position.
Yeah.
That's a little different than DDP getting absolutely thrashed and having no answers.